Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. We are buzzing as always, coming in hot from Buenos today, no longer in Cordoba. Over the next couple of weeks, you guys are going to see this wacky background behind me. My apologies. It is the best setup that I have. I guess I can show you guys a little more, but it's this weird bull fighter. It's actually sort of sick, but yeah, I can't really move it. And this is the best setup. So my apologies if that is a nuisance in any capacity. Enough about me. Super pumped to have today's guest on the show, Andrew Forson, coming in hot today. President of DeFi Technologies since April 2025, about half a year ago. He previously held the title of Head of Ventures and Investments at the Hashgraph Group, the commercialization and enablement arm of Hedera, that is HBAR, which we all know. He's also a non-independent director on the board of directors at DeFi Technologies. Andrew, welcome to the show, my friend. Pumped to have you on. How you doing this lovely evening?
Thank you so much, Matt. I'm doing well. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Likewise, before we started, you and I were shooting shit a little about speaking in Spanish. Hablamos poco español, and we are going to practice more and both get our Spanish up. But you're in the south of Spain right now. How much of a treat is it in the south of Spain? I love Malaga. I love Marbella. One of my favorite places on the planet.
This is one of the greatest countries in the world. It's beautiful. The weather's nice. Food is good. Lifestyle is great. I love it. Always happy to be here.
It's truly awesome. Let's jump into it. Before we get into everything that you guys are doing at DeFi Tech, I mean, you guys have some wild news. We'll get into all that stuff. Present day crypto market, absolute bananas. I feel like this is one of the few times where we don't really have a consensus. Are we going to go higher or are we going to go lower? A lot of the smartest folks that I've talked to over the last 2 weeks, I guess week and a half since the big crypto crash on 10/10, 2 Fridays ago, no one knows what's good here. Are we going up? Are we going down? We're not going to get into pricing, just your sentiment. Are we still in a good spot? Do we still have some green lights ahead of us, some green candles, or are we about to enter a bear market?
Yeah, I was just saying prior to this call in another discussion I was having that Octobers for me generally suck. I think most market corrections often happen in October. And I think that we have to understand that the entire crypto space, it is actually a revolution in terms of underlying technology. And it just happens to also significantly impact the financial services space. We're just at the beginning of this journey. So of course, there will be periods where investments go up and they go down. I mean, this is a standard thing, but I equate any panic associated with movements in markets to watching a boxing match and literally clutching your pearls and having a heart attack anytime your guy gets hit. There's always going to be give and take. There's always going to be volatility. And as a matter of fact, that volatility normally leads to opportunities to profit. But I think it was Warren Buffett that said it best, that in the short term, markets are a popularity contest, and in the long term, markets are a weighing machine. So we just have to look and say, are you investing in technologies that solve an actual problem? And in this case, most of the digital asset crypto space, a lot of these underlying blockchains actually solve real problems. Do we think that the utilization of stablecoins, for instance, is going to go down in time or up? And if it does go up, we have to remember that it is actual L1 chains that support them. So as long as we think that the utilization of these technologies will continue to increase, then ultimately the markets will go up. So I'm relatively calm. I know that some people don't want to hear that from someone who represents a publicly listed company whenever markets are going down. But I've been through so many market corrections where there was a feeling that, oh, this was the end of the internet. That did not take place. I think that I remember a few months ago after the DeepSeek moment, it was the end of NVIDIA. Well, NVIDIA is still here. I am quite confident that October, traditionally for me, in my experience, statistically, Octobers suck. But just as much as Octobers suck, Januaries tend to statistically also be quite strong. So I think we just ride this out.
Yeah, well said there. again, the stablecoin inflows still continue to come in, which is good. My only worry is with the ETPs, ETFs, whatever you want to call it, the outflows, I believe, over the last 3 weeks straight have been significantly more outflows than inflows, which I do think is a new metric and quantitative measurement that needs to sort of come into play when we think and talk about the overall crypto market. And again, up until 2 years ago, right? Crazy to think it was 2 years ago with the first Bitcoin ETF. That wasn't a metric that we ever cared about. And now we do. Before that, there was the companies like DeFi Technologies and like Cypherpunk Holdings and Soul Strategies and MicroStrategy, and the 3IQ ETFs in Canada that we all invested in, of course, Hot 8, Marathon, all the OGs, and my apologies to those who I'm forgetting. But we sort of come to this new realm here, well, which leads me into my next point, and you've been on the record talking about this a lot, sort of the convergence of TradFi and crypto. You guys were one of the first to do it. I believe you were the first NASDAQ listed company to bring sort of all, like to truly, truly do the convergence of capital markets and DeFi with not just one single crypto on the balance sheet, but the multitude of them, products, the whole 9 yards. Moving forward, where do you see the convergence of TradFi and crypto? Are we plateaued a little, or are we just getting started?
Well, the quick answer to your question is we're just getting started. There's one thing that I want to highlight, and that is in the history of Valour. And Valour is our ETP issuing subsidiary, our wholly owned subsidiary. We've not had a week of net outflows since the inception of Valour. Now, perhaps this is something that's unique to our particular home markets, which is predominantly in Europe and more specifically in the Scandinavian countries. But we touch wood. We think it's thanks to our products. We haven't had a week of net outflows. And even on the October 10/10 market correction, literally the day after, so that happened on a Friday, and I think on the following Monday, we had our highest record of inflows to date. And then soon after that, I think we actually had one of our highest AUMs of all time. So again, that's testament to there are ebbs and flows in the market. Now, as far as the intersection of DeFi and TradFi, I really think we're just getting started. Look, we have to remember that there's a lot of power in blockchain and decentralized finance. And that power, we don't necessarily notice it so much if we're living in a wonderful, fully developed country that has a stable currency. I think you and I are both Canadians, so we've grown up in Canada. Canada, I mean, it's like, it's one of the best countries. Even our worst problems are sort of like heaven to 95% of the countries out there. So I consider myself, incredibly privileged to be, born in Montreal, raised in Canada. Fantastic. But there are a lot of countries, and I think you can certainly attest to this, that don't have stable currencies, that have a lot of inflation and devaluation. And the access to things like stable coins is now their de facto way of being able to communicate with the world as far as international trade.
Yeah.
Now, even sending money from one country to another, I mean, if you're sending money from one person in Canada to another person in Canada, it's economical, it can be done. If you're using an IBAN within Europe, it's economical and it can be done. But if you're trying to transfer money between, say, Canada and a Brazil, or Canada and an African country, all of a sudden there are a lot of barriers as far as where TradFi is concerned. And this is where DeFi, stable coins, the blockchain technology, it makes it that you can have incredibly fast, assured transactions in record time. And it makes it that if you're living in the global south or a poorer country, or a country that doesn't have a stable currency, man, you actually now have the ability to have access to a currency that isn't depreciating 20, 30% a quarter. Now, for those of us who are living in, Switzerland, in a Eurozone, in the US, Canada, that seems like an abstract construct. But we're actually the minority in the world. There's 8 billion
Yeah.
people in the world. And I think these developed countries only make up around, at least the Western countries make up max 700, 800 million people. That's 1/8, approximately 12%. The rest of the world, the other 88%, has to contend with a lot of volatility in currencies and whatnot. And DeFi Technologies, not the company, but decentralized finance technologies, are actually solving real problems for people who live in those countries.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I've been in Argentina for 3 weeks now, and I see it firsthand every day. A lot of the restaurants you go to, you can literally pay in Tether, which is pretty wild and something that
Yeah.
I've never been to anywhere in Canada or USA where you can do that. It's completely different. It's quite cool here as well. It's nice just whipping out your phone, pulling out Exodus Trust, whatever you're using, boom, scan QR code or just a quick little swap on the spot, and you can pay for stuff in Tether, which is again unheard of, but truly powerful here. Andrew, let's get into DeFi tech for a sec. You guys, again, with a company like yours, it's I don't want to say it's tough to cover everything, but it is because you guys are doing so many different things. Let's start off with the elevator pitch. Tell me what exactly you guys do. Obviously, you're a publicly traded company, one of the behemoths in the public space. I wouldn't even really call you guys a DATCO because you're not a DATCO, but you guys have absolutely everything. You have DeFi Alpha, the in-house art desk. You have the crazy amount of soul staking rev. You have the issuer, the ETP issuer at Valour. You have so much stuff, and I'm probably forgetting a bunch of it. So give us the elevator pitch, and then we'll get into it.
All right, super. So DeFi Technologies is essentially a company that focuses on being a bridge between the traditional capital markets and the world of decentralized finance. And how do we do that? Well, at heart, our largest asset is a wholly owned subsidiary called Valour. And what Valour does is it wraps digital assets into exchange traded instruments, which can include ETPs, which exchange traded products, exchange traded certificates, exchange traded notes. These distinctions are more pronounced in Europe, but in general, you can almost think of them as very similar to ETFs. Now, why is this important? Well, because even though those of us who are lovers of the digital asset space are very comfortable perhaps dealing with wallets and knowing where to go to buy digital assets and cryptocurrencies, there are many people who would like exposure to these assets in their portfolios, but they don't have the technical expertise or prowess to actually be able to figure out how to purchase them. In this case, DeFi Technologies, it fulfills a need. So it enables people to go onto their local stock exchange via their brokerage account and buy digital assets via the ETPs, which are regulated and exchange traded. So these instruments track the digital assets. By and large, Valour is actually hedging the purchase of the ETPs 1-to-1 with actual underlying digital assets. So it's a true representation of what the digital asset you're exposed to. And that way you're able to use these ETPs to gain access to a range of digital assets that would otherwise be difficult to gain access to. And it's very, very convenient from the perspective of tax planning, from the perspective of estate management and planning, and just ease. And we have the distinction, in particular, Valour, actually, as of today, they launched their 100th ETP with a product, the Sky token. So that pretty much assures that we have the largest portfolio of digital asset underlying exchange traded products of any company in the world as of today, with 100 of these instruments. So that's one example of how we are making it possible for traditional capital to flow into the world of decentralized finance and cryptocurrency.
So you guys, in a whole, Andrew, like you're just a proxy. You're a publicly traded proxy play to all of crypto. If I'm sort of summarizing that in one line, like you want access and exposure to a myriad of different crypto products, blockchains, ecosystems, in a tightly managed group with experience via public markets to get those tax-free benefits, to get those estate planning benefits, to get the sort of compliance of public markets. Look no further than DeFi.
That is correct. And we do that through two means. One, our company actually generates revenue. So it's not like a digital asset treasury company that just holds and hopes the prices goes up. We have a fundamentally profitable operating business. Actually, we have several of them within DeFi Technologies. We're a significant shareholder of a Swiss bank called Amina Bank. We have another wholly owned subsidiary called Stillman Digital, which since its inception has processed a gross transaction volume of over $51 billion in terms of on-ramp and off-ramp services in and out of stablecoins and cryptocurrencies. And we have our wholly owned subsidiary Valour as well, which is one of the most prolific ETP issuers in the world today. So you have exposure via the operating company, which also holds digital assets in its own custodial treasury. And then you also have exposure via the structured instruments, the ETPs that we list, of which we've listed 100 on 8 exchanges predominantly throughout Europe.
I love it. Andrew, you're going to roll here, but I take a quick break. Give a huge shout out to our sponsor, the show, Prime XPT. And when we get back, we're going to keep buzzing on DeFi, tech, and one thing in particular that I am very excited to get into. We are going to get into QCAD, Canada's first stablecoin. Now, this is the only thing that I probably don't agree with you on, but I'm excited to get into this and maybe I'll play some devil's advocate. Until then, huge shout out to Prime XPT, longtime friends and longtime sponsors of the Crypto News podcast. We love the team at Prime XPT as they offer a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. Doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet, you can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best suit your trading style. Prime XPT is also running an exclusive promo for listeners of the Crypto News pod. Use the promo code CryptoNews50, that's CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading accounts. Again, that's CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading accounts. Now back to the show. Okay, let's get into Stablecorp. A couple things.
All right.
Number one, this deck did come across my desk. I found it interesting. The Stablecorp team, very smart team, switched on lads, and I have trust and faith in the team. Where I don't want to use the words trust and faith, but where I'm not fully aligned with QCAD is the fact that no one in Canada, yourself included, my apologies if I'm putting words in your mouth, who knows crypto prices anything in Canadian dollars. All of my normie friends, and shout out my normie friends, I love you all. They ask me all the time, Z, Bitcoin hit 150 today. Should I buy some? I'm like, dude, Bitcoin did not hit 150. It's at 125, not 150 CAD. Z, Sol hit 350. Sol is not at 350. It's had 270, whatever the case may be. That is my issue, where no one prices things in Canadian dollars except for the normies. And once the normies truly get into this space, they then change their sort of ideology and mindset from pricing digital assets in CAD, and then they go to USD, because when you're on TradingView or CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap, and then when you start getting really nitty gritty and you start using the MetaMask and the Phantoms and the Rabbies and the Hyperliquids and the Binances, blah blah blah, it's not in CAD, it's in USD. So that is my issue. And last but not least, and sorry for being the bear and the negative Nancy here, my last thing is the banks. Canada is not like USA. For the folks at home who are Canadian, in USA, yes, there are some large banks, but there are thousands of little merchant banks and little smaller banks. In Canada, there's 5 banks that run the show, and I don't know anyone who uses any of the banks that aren't one of the big 5. Sorry for the bleak outlook. Sorry for being the bear, but I'm just very curious to understand more about Stablecorp and QCAD.
Yeah, look, everything you said is correct, actually. All digital assets are pretty much priced in US dollars. But you have to take a broader look at the importance of currency and what it means to a country. So not just Canada. Currency is a representation of a country's borrowing power and their ability to execute monetary policy, right? So if you are in a situation where every country is using exclusively the US dollar, that means every country is basically relying on US treasuries to finance their operations. But the thing is, it is only the US government that gets to determine how much of their treasuries they want to release into the world economy or how much they want to buy back. So no matter what we do in the digital asset space, as long as countries need to raise money to finance their operations, they have two options. They have taxes and monetary policy, which is tied to sovereign issuances. And if they want to have an effective monetary policy, they need to have their currency in order to be able to control how employment figures are going to be related to inflation and how the value of their currency is going to be able to service their population. Now, back in around 1976, they had something called like Bretton Woods. And prior to that, there was effectively a gold standard. The problem with the gold standard is it did not allow countries to effectively be loose with their monetary policy to allow more currency to flow into their economic system whenever they were having issues with employment, for instance. Some would say that's a good thing. We should have stayed there. Some would say, no, it was a bad thing because the objective is full employment. That's a debate for academicians. The important thing to know is today, the de facto standard is every country pretty much has their own central bank and their own means of operating a currency. The fact that we're moving to digital currencies doesn't negate that important aspect of monetary policy. So Canada is a sovereign country. Therefore, they're going to need to have some form of digital currency to track or link to their sovereign currency. And we are happy to be investors in the Stablecorp project precisely because it is effectively the first Canadian stablecoin. And more importantly to us, it is backed by both Circle and Coinbase Ventures. And
That's true.
yeah. So what happens is we took a strategic decision and said, look, if we want to be supporting a winning stablecoin in Canada, we want to be working with the team that has one of the winningest regulated stablecoins in the world. From that point, as a company, it gives us the ability to leverage what QCAD is doing and help connect the Canadian digital currency to other international currencies, including USDT and USDC via Stoneman Digital. It also puts Valour in a position where we can explore money market instruments that would underpin the QCAD. So you're actually right, but there's also additional
100%.
factors that need,
Yeah, no, I guess, and I agree with everything you said here, Andrew. I guess my bigger sort of bear point is that if there was a country, if there was a G7 country that was so dependent on a couple banks and had such a mafioso couple banks,
Fair.
they probably wouldn't want to see a stablecoin succeed. We've already seen we've already seen the rumors in the States about all the banks will not let the stablecoin succeed because it's going to take away so much of their power. I think the Canadian banks have more power than the American banks, and that's my whole
Yeah,
thing
I
and
think you're
why
right.
but heck, I would love to see QCAD. You know how nice it would be to send QCAD instead of an e-transfer? That'd be glorious. And honestly,
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
e-transfer is a great product. I will say it's a phenomenal product. But having Canada jump into the crypto sphere and not just allow Canadian companies to come in and launch, DATs and other companies on the stock exchange would be beautiful. I'd love to see that happen.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's like every country is ultimately going to have their own stablecoin. And banks are notorious. They're always against innovation until they can make money from it. And
And
then
then
before you know it, they're there.
they're
I
there.
mean, look
Yeah.
at, I mean, so many of the larger financial institutions in the States that at one point were absolutely against Bitcoin. I think BlackRock is the best example. Now
Yeah.
all of a
Good
sudden
point.
their IBIT ETF is like worth like 100 billion. Like it's
Yep.
the biggest Bitcoin ETF in the world. So I think in that perspective, same thing with internet banking. There's a
Yeah.
time when, oh man, the internet is just so insecure. Banks will never allow you to do their banking online. And now it's hard to find a teller if you need one during regular hours. So I think to some extent there's always a bit of a bet on the future. But as a Canadian and knowing the wonderful team, Kesem Frank, with, people like Fred Pye on the board of advisors behind Stablecorp and QCAD, we felt that, and also the great cap table. I mean, if you've got Coinbase and Circle on the cap table, we felt that it's a good idea for DeFi to be there as well, given what we do.
Yeah, well said. Look, we're getting tight for time. A couple more questions and we'll wrap up. The partnership, I mean, you get so many amazing partnerships, but the partnership with BTQ Tech on post quantum security, I sort of got quantum pilled last year. I was very fortunate to hammer a bunch of the quantum stocks. I've had a bunch of really incredible quantum crypto CEOs and founders on the podcast as well. It's something that I'm trying to learn more about, but I find I understand sort of the macro outlook and importance of it, but on the micro understanding the nitty gritty side, it's still way above my pay grade. I've not had enough reps in the arena. I've not done enough research. I have put in hours, but not hundreds of hours. It's something I'm working on. It's very, very bloody complex. The collaboration with BTQ Tech on post quantum security. Tell us a little bit more about this because I absolutely love this.
Okay. So at the highest level, what is the importance or the threat of quantum to the cryptographic space? At the highest level, computers now are able to process things in ones and zeros, whereas quantum computers are able to process things in some instances where something can occupy different values within the same space. So it just means you have an exponential capacity to manage data and execute computations. Now, we're very fortunate in that our CEO, Olivier Roussy-Newton, had the foresight to understand that all these digital assets are based upon certain cryptographic algorithms that someday, with the advent of real quantum computing power, they could effectively be unraveled. You can think of it as a thread that you have in clothing. If you pull it, it comes apart. In the same way, if you have exponentially more powerful computers, they may be able to decipher the cryptographic algorithms and therefore allow room for bad actors to perhaps fraudulently take positions or manipulate certain cryptocurrencies. So you can think of it as BTQ and DEFT in having the same, as in DeFi Technologies, in having the same CEO, we would be able to perhaps avail ourselves of that technology in order to protect not only our digital asset treasury, but provide better insights into protecting perhaps stablecoins that we've invested in, protecting other digital assets, because we have a lot of exposure and understanding of the digital asset space. So where BTQ is a specialist in defining software-based post-quantum protective algorithms and technologies, and DeFi is a specialist in dealing with digital assets and the world of traditional finance,
It's good synergy.
yeah, we would be first in line to be able to use their technologies to be able to provide solutions for our own products and potentially for others as well. So in
Yeah.
that way, I think we're very fortunate.
Yeah, well said. I mean, so many other things we can talk about. You guys did the SO5 partnership, the Continental Stablecoin investments, a bunch of new ETF launches, well, Bitcoin staking, ETP, so many more things. But again, we are getting tight. Any other news you can tell us about, or is there anything else you'd like to discuss, Andrew, before we let you go today?
Wow. I mean, this has been a great opportunity. I think that we have significant, I'll say, plans for expanding our product mix. And you raised some of them. We are definitely looking at interactions with sovereign debt and bringing our unique approach and view to digital assets and traditional finance to that space. Certainly, we have made that investment in the CNGN stablecoin in Nigeria, And that too is alongside Coinbase Ventures and Circle. So you can sort of see how remittances between countries can work whilst leveraging Stillman Digital, for instance. So we do have a lot of surprises coming in the future, but being a public company, unfortunately, there are some things that I can't talk about, but you can rest assured that when the time is right, the announcements will be made.
Love it. Andrew, what an episode. Appreciate you coming on, mate. So before you go, can you please let our listeners know where they can find you personally and, of course, DeFi Technologies online and on socials?
Yeah, for sure. Certainly on X, I can be found at Forson. Very, very simple. I think our handle on X is at DeFi Tech Global. And we also have a Valour Funds handle of at Valour Funds for Valour. And you can find us on LinkedIn, DeFi Technologies. I'm Andrew Forson on LinkedIn, Valour on LinkedIn. And the best way to reach us for investor relations is ir@defi.tech. And I can also be reached via email, andrew@defi.tech.
Wow, what a banger. Folks, what an episode with Andrew Forson, president of DeFi Technologies. Huge shout out to Andrew and the team for making this happen. If you guys enjoyed this one, and I certainly hope you did, please do subscribe, hammer that like button. It would be the world to my team and I. Speaking of the team, love you guys. Thank you so much for everything. And back to the listeners, keep on growing those bags and keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. Love you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you on the next one. Ciao.